The surveyor's compass had spun 3 full circles before Luca Osworth realized the storm had turned the mountain pass into a white grave. He stumbled forward through snow that now reached his thighs, his fingers so numb he could no longer feel whether he still gripped the leather strap of his instrument case. The wind shrieked across the high peaks with a sound like tearing metal, and somewhere in the back of his mind, past the animal panic and the cold that had burrowed into his bones, he understood that he was going to die here. 24 years old, 2 seasons into the work he loved, mapping the Northern Territories for the Crown's new road projects, and he would become just another frozen body the spring thaw would reveal. The world tilted sideways. Luca realized distantly that he had fallen, that the snow was actually quite soft, almost welcoming. His father had always said he took after his mother's side, the dreamers and wanderers who never could stay put. His older brother had the family farm well in hand. Luca's absence would hurt them, but they would survive it. He hoped they would not blame themselves for letting him go. The cold stopped hurting. That seemed important, seemed like something he should worry about, but his thoughts moved slow as honey in winter. He closed his eyes. The wind scream faded to a distant murmur. When he woke to warmth. Not the gradual creep of returning sensation, but a sudden, encompassing heat that wrapped around him like an embrace. Luca gasped, his chest heaving, and his eyes flew open to darkness lit by the faint blue glow of ice. He was in a cave, he realized slowly. The walls curved smooth and crystalline overhead, and somewhere nearby he could hear the muffled howl of the storm still raging outside. Something heavy lay across him, impossibly soft and thick. He managed to turn his head, his neck crackling with the movement, and saw silver fur. It covered him from chin to feet, dense and lustrous even in the cave's dim light, and the warmth radiating from it felt almost alive. "You wake." The voice came from his left, low and careful. "Good. I was not certain you would." Luca turned his head further, wincing as his frozen muscles protested. A woman sat cross-legged a few feet away, watching him with eyes the color of amber, green skin, small tusks curving up from her lower jaw, pointed ears just visible through the thick black braid that fell over one shoulder. An orc. His heart should have hammered with fear. Everyone knew about orcs, the border raids, the savagery, the danger. But the woman looked at him with an expression of such solemn concern, and he was so warm under the silver pelt that fear seemed a distant and academic thing. "You pulled me out," he said. His voice came rough and cracked. "You saved my life." She nodded once, a sharp economical movement. "I heard you fall. The storm made it difficult to find you, but the snow had already begun to bury you when I did. Thank you." The words felt absurdly inadequate. Luca tried to push himself up to sitting, but his arms shook and gave out. The orc woman moved forward quickly, one hand steadying his shoulder while the other adjusted the fur pelt to keep him covered. "Do not rush," she said. "The cold went very deep. Your body needs time." Up close, Luca could see her more clearly. She was tall but not massive, built lean and strong in a way that spoke of mountain life and hard winters. She wore layers of wool and leather, all in shades of gray and white, and her green skin had faint darker markings along her cheekbones that might have been ritual tattoos, or might just have been the play of the ice light. She was, he realized with some surprise, beautiful. Not in the way of human women, but beautiful nonetheless. "My name is Luca," he said. "Luca Osworth, crowned surveyor, or at least I was before I tried to become an icicle." The corner of her mouth lifted just barely. "Vera Talmek, hunter and guide." She settled back on her heels, her hands resting on her knees. "You were foolish to be in the pass during storm season." "I know." Luca managed a weak laugh. I thought I could beat the weather. I needed to finish mapping the northern route before I returned to the lowlands. Clearly, I miscalculated. Clearly. Her tone was dry but not unkind. She reached beside her and lifted a water skin, uncorking it with deft fingers. Drink, slowly. He obeyed, grateful for the cool water on his parched throat. When he had drunk his fill, she took the skin back and set it aside. Luca's eyes drifted down to the pelt covering him, and for the first time he really looked at it. The fur was extraordinary, thick and plush, silver-white with faint hints of blue in its depths. The hide beneath had been worked to impossible softness, and around the edges he could see intricate beadwork in patterns that seemed to shift in the ice light. "This is beautiful," he said quietly. "I have never seen anything like it." Vera's expression changed, something flickering across her face too quick to read. "It is my clan's winter pelt," she said. "Very old, very sacred." Luca froze, his eyes going wide. "Sacred? Then I mean, if this is a religious object, you needed it more than tradition needed it today," Vera said, but her voice had gone tight. "Without it, you would have died while I prepared a fire. With it you live. That is enough." But it clearly was not enough, not for her. Luca could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands had curled into fists on her knees. He had grown up on a farm on the southern border where 3 cultures mixed, had learned early to read the small signs of distress, and everything about Vera's posture screamed internal conflict. "Will you get in trouble?" he asked. "For using it on me?" She did not answer immediately. Outside, the wind howled with renewed fury, and the ice walls of the cave seemed to hum with it. Finally, Vera lifted her head and met his eyes. "The winter pelt is given each year to the one the elders deem worthy to lead the spring migration," she said. "It has been passed down for 13 generations. To wear it is an honor. To give it to an outsider, especially a human, is—" She paused, searching for the word. "Sacrilege, some would say." "Then why did you do it?" "Because you were dying." She said it simply, as if that explained everything. Perhaps it did. "I could not watch you freeze and do nothing. If the elders judge me harshly for it, that is my burden to carry, not yours." Luca looked at her for a long moment, at the set of her jaw and the steadiness in her amber eyes, and felt something shift in his chest. He had met many people in his travels, merchants and farmers, soldiers and craftsmen, but he could not remember the last time someone had looked at him with such fundamental, unadorned decency. "I am in your debt," he said. "Whatever comes of this, I will stand with you. I swear it." Vera's expression softened just a fraction. "Sleep now," she said. "The storm will blow for at least another day, perhaps 2. We are trapped here until it passes, but we are safe and we have supplies. Rest, heal. We will worry about everything else when the sky clears." Luca wanted to argue, wanted to insist on staying awake and talking, learning more about this strange and solemn orc woman who had risked so much for him. But the warmth of the winter pelt and the exhaustion in his bones pulled him down like an undertow. His eyes drifted shut despite his best efforts. He dreamed. In the dream, he stood in a high meadow under a summer sun, the grass golden and thick around his knees. A child ran ahead of him, laughing, black braids flying behind her. He knew somehow that the child was important, that he should follow, and so he did, his legs moving easily through the grass. The child led him to a stone circle, ancient markers worn smooth by wind and time, and in the center of the circle stood Vera. But it was not Vera as she was now. This Vera was younger, perhaps 10 or 11, and she stood very straight with her chin lifted despite the tears streaming down her green cheeks. An older orc, a woman with silver streaking her black hair, wrapped a cloak around the child Vera's shoulders and spoke words he could not hear. The child in front of him, the laughing girl with the braids, turned and smiled at him, and he saw that she had Vera's amber eyes. "She had to be strong," the child said. "Mother died in the winter. The clan needed her to be strong." Then the dream shifted, and he was somewhere else entirely. He stood in a small room with rough wooden walls, sun streaming through an open window. His mother sat in her rocking chair, the one his father had made for her the year they married, and she was humming the old lullaby she used to sing when he was small. She looked younger than he remembered, healthier, and she smiled when she saw him. "My wanderer," she said fondly, always looking at the horizon. "I miss you," Luca said, and was surprised to find his voice breaking. "I know." She reached out, and though she was too far away to touch him, he felt her hand on his cheek anyway, warm and calloused and gentle. "But you are doing exactly what you were meant to do, seeing the world, meeting people who need you. Do not regret the path you chose, my dear one." The dream shifted again, faster now, images flowing into each other like water. He saw Vera climbing a steep mountain path, saw her taking down a deer with a bow, saw her sitting alone by a fire with an expression of such profound loneliness that it made his chest ache. He saw his own life too, moments he had nearly forgotten, teaching his younger cousins to read the stars, sketching maps by candlelight, standing at his mother's grave and promising her he would not waste the life she had given him. And through it all, he felt Vera's presence, warm and steady beside him, experiencing his memories as he experienced hers. It should have been invasive, should have felt like a violation, but instead it felt like the most natural thing in the world, like coming home. He woke to find Vera watching him, her amber eyes wide with something that might have been wonder. "You felt it too," she said. "It was not a question." "Yes." Luca pushed himself up carefully, and this time his arms held him. The weakness had faded, replaced by a bone-deep warmth that felt almost unnatural. "I saw your memories, your mother, the clan, and you saw mine." "The winter Pelt," Vera said slowly. "There are stories, old ones, that say it can bind souls together if both sleep beneath it. I thought they were just tales the elders told to make the Pelt seem more sacred. I did not believe. It is real." Luca looked down at the silver fur, at the intricate beadwork along its edges. "Whatever magic is in this, it is real." They sat in silence for a long moment, the implications hanging heavy between them. Outside, the storm still raged, but here in the ice cave, wrapped in the warmth of the sacred Pelt, the world felt very small and strangely intimate. "I saw your mother die," Luca said quietly. "I felt how much it hurt you, how you had to hide that hurt because the clan needed you to be strong." Vera's jaw tightened, but she did not look away. "And I saw your mother too. I saw how she told you to follow your dreams even when it hurt her to watch you go. I felt how much you loved her. How much you still miss her." "Does it bother you," Luca asked, "that I know so much about you now?" She considered the question, her head tilted slightly. "I thought it would," she admitted. "But no, it feels right somehow, as if the Pelt knew we needed to understand each other." "Maybe it did." Luca shifted, drawing the fur more securely around his shoulders. He was fully warm now, his body recovered from its brush with death, but he found he did not want to give up the Pelt just yet. "How long have you had it? The responsibility of leading the migration, I mean." 3 years. Vera reached over to a small pack and pulled out strips of dried meat, offering him one. "I was young when they chose me, barely 20. Some thought I was too inexperienced, but the elders said I had the right heart for it, the patience and the strength." Luca accepted the meat gratefully, realizing he was ravenous. As he chewed, Vera continued. "The spring migration is everything to my clan," she said. "We winter in the high caves where the stone holds heat and the passes are blocked against predators, but we cannot stay there year-round. When the snow melts, We must move down to the summer grazing lands, across 3 mountain passes and through territory where avalanches and rockfalls kill someone almost every year. The one who wears the winter pelt is responsible for all of it, choosing the route, timing the departure, making the decisions that keep everyone alive. That is a heavy burden, Luca said. Yes. She took a piece of meat for herself, chewing slowly. But it is also an honor. My mother led the migration for 7 years before she died. When they gave me the pelt, I felt her with me, as if she was guiding my steps. She would be proud of you, Luca said, and knew it was true. He had seen that child Vera in his dream, seen the love in her eyes when she spoke of her mother. For what you have become, for the lives you have saved. Vera looked at him, and for the first time he saw her smile properly, not just the barely there quirk of her lips, but a real smile that reached her eyes. It transformed her face, made her look younger and softer and so achingly beautiful that Luca felt his breath catch. The pelt did not just show me your past, she said. It showed me your heart. You are a good man, Luca Osworth. Restless and reckless, perhaps, but good. I am glad I found you in the snow. I am glad too, Luca said, and meant it with every fiber of his being. They passed the rest of that first day in quiet conversation, trading stories about their lives. Vera told him about growing up in the high peaks, about learning to track game in the snow and read the weather in the clouds. Luca told her about the farm where he had grown up, about his patient father and dreamer mother, about the day he had seen a crowned surveyor pass through their village and known immediately that he wanted that life, that freedom to wander and discover. When evening came, or what they guessed was evening since the storm outside never fully darkened, Vera built up the small fire she had managed to start using dried lichen and a piece of flint. They ate more dried meat and some hard bread from her pack, and Luca found himself watching the firelight play across Vera's green skin, illuminating the darker markings on her cheeks. "May I ask what those are?" he said, gesturing to the markings. "The patterns on your face." Vera touched her cheekbone reflexively. "Clan marks," she said. "Every orc clan has their own. These mark me as Talmec of the high peaks and winter winds. We take them when we come of age, 13 years old. The ink is made from coal and pine resin and a little of our own blood." "They are beautiful," Luca said honestly. She studied him for a moment as if trying to determine whether he was sincere. Whatever she saw in his face must have satisfied her because she nodded slowly. "Thank you. I know humans find us frightening. The green skin, the tusks. You see monsters when you look at us." "I do not see a monster when I look at you," Luca said. "I see someone brave and kind who saved my life at great personal cost. That is what matters." "You are an unusual human," Vera said, but there was warmth in her voice now, a tentative affection. "I have been told that before," Luca admitted with a grin. "Usually not as a compliment," she laughed, a low, rich sound that seemed to fill the ice cave. "I think I meant it as one." That night, when exhaustion finally claimed them both, Vera hesitated before lying down beside him. "The pelt is large enough for us both," she said carefully. "And we will stay warmer that way, but if you prefer, I can." "Stay," Luca said quickly. "Please. I do not mind. And honestly, after sharing dreams, lying beside each other seems almost innocent by comparison." The corner of her mouth lifted. "That is fair." She settled down next to him, and Luca pulled the winter pelt over them both. The fur seemed to sigh as it spread across them, and the warmth intensified, wrapping them in a cocoon of comfort. Vera's shoulder pressed against his, solid and real, and Luca found himself hyper-aware of every point of contact between them. "Sleep well," Vera murmured, her eyes already drifting closed. "You too," Luca said, and let himself relax into the warmth. The dreams came again, but this time they were different. Instead of isolated memories, they seemed to be in the dreams together, walking through a landscape that was part memory and part imagination. They stood on a high ridge overlooking a valley Luca had never seen, where a river cut silver through green meadows and small houses dotted the landscape. "Where is this?" he asked. "I do not know," Vera said beside him. She looked around, her expression curious. "It is not anywhere I recognize." "Perhaps it is nowhere. Perhaps it is just what we are making together." In the dream, they walked down from the ridge hand in hand, though Luca could not remember when they had clasped hands. The valley seemed to shift around them, sometimes showing scenes from Luca's childhood, the farm and the village and the wide southern sky, sometimes showing pieces of Vera's life, the clan's winter caves and the high meadows where they summered. "Is it always this intense?" Luca asked. "The sharing, I do not know," Vera admitted. "I have never shared the Pelt with anyone else, not like this. Usually I sleep alone in my own furs, and the winter Pelt stays wrapped and protected until the migration begins." "I am sorry," Luca said, stopping to face her. Even in the dream, she was beautiful, her amber eyes reflecting light that had no source. "I am sorry that I have put you in this position, that you will be judged for helping me. Do not apologize for surviving," Vera said firmly. She reached up with her free hand and touched his cheek, a gesture so tender it made his throat tight. "I made my choice. I knew what it would cost, and I made it anyway. That is not your burden." "Let me help you bear it anyway," Luca said, "when we return to your clan. Let me stand with you and explain. They need to know that this was not disrespect, that you saved a life." "I will not stop you," Vera said, "but I cannot promise it will make a difference. The elders are old and set in their ways. They may not listen to a human, no matter how well-intentioned." "Then we will make them listen," Luca said with a confidence he did not entirely feel. Vera smiled, sad and affectionate at once. "You dream of changing the world, Luca Osworth. I saw that in your memories. Always trying to build bridges, map new paths, connect things that seemed separate. It is what makes you a good surveyor. And you dream of keeping your people safe," Luca said, "of being worthy of the trust they have placed in you. That is what makes you a good leader." They stood looking at each other for a long moment, and then the dream shifted again, pulling them somewhere new. This time they found themselves in the winter caves Luca had seen in Vera's memories, but the caves were different now, warmer somehow, full of light and the sound of voices. Orc children ran past them laughing, and around cooking fires, orc families gathered to share meals and stories. "This is what I fight for," Vera said quietly. "Not the pelt or the honor or the title. This, the life of the clan, the next generation growing up safe and strong." "I understand," Luca said, and he did. He thought of his own family, of the farm his brother now ran, of the community that had raised him. "It is the same thing my father fights for, why he breaks his back in the fields every year, because the alternative is letting the people he loves suffer." "Yes," Vera said. "Exactly." The dream faded slowly, gently, and they woke together as the cave's light shifted from blue to pale gray. The storm, it seemed, was finally beginning to break. Luca stretched carefully, his muscles protesting only slightly. The deep cold that had nearly killed him was completely gone now, burned away by the magic of the winter pelt. Beside him, Vera sat up and pushed her braid back over her shoulder, her movements efficient and practiced. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Good," Luca said, and was surprised to find it was true. "Better than I have in weeks, actually. Whatever magic is in that pelt, it does not just provide warmth. I feel stronger, clearer." "The old stories say the pelt was a gift from the winter spirits," Vera said. "That it was given to the first Talmec clan leader to help guide her people through a terrible storm that lasted 3 months. Whether that is true or just a tale, I cannot say. But the pelt is certainly more than just fur and leather. She stood and moved to the cave mouth, peering out at the gradually lightening sky. Luca joined her, the winter pelt still wrapped around his shoulders, and together they watched as the storm's fury finally spent itself. The wind died to a whisper, then to nothing. The snow stopped falling. And gradually, incredibly, the sun broke through the clouds, turning the snow-covered peaks into a field of diamonds. "We can leave tomorrow," Vera said. "The snow will need a day to settle before the path is safe, but then we must go." "To your clan," Luca said. "Yes." Vera turned to look at him, her expression grave. "You should know what you are walking into. The elders will not be pleased. My people have no love for humans. There have been too many raids, too many attacks on our villages, too much bloodshed. Even if they understand why I did what I did, they may not forgive it." "Will they hurt you?" Luca asked, fear spiking through him. "No," Vera said, though she did not sound entirely certain. "The worst they can do is strip me of the right to lead the migration. Choose someone else to wear the pelt. It would shame me and my mother's memory, but I would survive it." "Then let us make sure that does not happen," Luca said. He reached out and took her hand, squeezing gently. "You saved me. Now let me try to save you." Vera looked down at their joined hands, and something complicated flickered across her face. "You are making this very difficult," she said quietly. "Making what difficult? Not caring for you." She lifted her eyes to his, and Luca saw vulnerability there, raw and honest. "The pelt has shown me your heart. I have walked through your dreams and your memories. I know you now in a way I have never known anyone, and everything I have seen makes me want." She trailed off, shaking her head. "It does not matter what I want. You are human. I am orc. Even if the elders forgive me, even if they let me keep the pelt, anything between us would be forbidden. Impossible." Luca's heart hammered against his ribs. He thought about the dreams they had shared, about the intimacy of walking through each other's memories. He thought about Vera's face in the firelight, about her smile that morning, about the way she had risked everything to save him. And he thought about the strange, fierce warmth that had been growing in his chest since he woke in the ice cave, a feeling he had not expected and did not entirely understand but could not deny. "What if I do not care about impossible?" he said. Vera drew in a sharp breath. "Luca." "I know we have only known each other for 2 days," he said quickly. "I know this is strange and complicated and probably unwise. But Vera, I have spent my entire adult life looking for something I could not name, some connection, some purpose that felt real and true. And I am standing here holding your hand, and I think I might have finally found it." "You are being reckless again," Vera said, but there was no heat in it. She sounded almost hopeful. "Yes," Luca agreed. "I am, but tell me you do not feel it too. Tell me these dreams mean nothing to you. Tell me you will not think about me when I leave, and I will walk away right now. I will thank you for saving my life, and I will go back to my maps and my roads, and I will never trouble you again." Vera looked at him for a long, breathless moment. Then she stepped forward and kissed him. It was not a gentle kiss. It was fierce and desperate and slightly awkward, her small tusks pressing against his upper lip, her hand fisting in the front of his shirt. Luca wrapped his arms around her waist and pulled her close, and the winter pelt slipped from his shoulders to pool around their feet. The cold rushed in immediately, but Luca barely noticed. All he could feel was Vera, solid and warm and real against him, kissing him like he was the answer to a question she had been asking her entire life. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Vera rested her forehead against his. "This is foolish," she said. "Probably," Luca agreed. "My clan will not accept it. We will make them accept it. You do not know what you are asking. The prejudice, the anger. Humans and orcs do not belong together, Luca finished. I do not care. I have never been particularly good at following the rules anyway. Vera laughed, the sound shaky but genuine. No, I saw that in your memories. You never could stay on the path someone else laid out for you, and you are too kind for your own good, Luca said. Too willing to sacrifice yourself for others. Maybe we balance each other out. Maybe. Vera pulled back just far enough to look at him properly, her amber eyes searching his face. But Luca, you must understand. This will not be easy. Even if we can convince the elders to let me keep the pelt, even if they accept that I did not mean disrespect, they will not be happy about this. About us. You will be walking into a community that has every reason to hate humans and asking them to accept you, to welcome you. Then I will spend every day proving myself worthy of that welcome, Luca said. I will show them that not all humans are their enemies, that some of us want peace. Want understanding. You really believe that is possible, Vera said wonderingly. You really think you can change their minds? I have to try, Luca said, because the alternative is walking away from you, and I do not think I can do that, not anymore. Vera closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, they were bright with unshed tears. You are going to break my heart, Luca Osworth. Only if you let me, Luca said gently, and I really hope you do not. They spent the rest of that day preparing for the journey ahead. Vera went out into the snow to check the pass and returned with good news. The path was treacherous but passable, and they should be able to reach the winter caves by nightfall the following day if they pushed hard. Luca checked his own pack, grateful to find that his instruments had survived their ordeal more or less intact. His maps were ruined, water damaged beyond recovery, but the sextant and compass remained functional, and that was what mattered most. As the sun set, painting the snow in shades of orange and pink, they sat together by the fire, and Vera carefully folded the winter pelt, her movements reverent and precise. Luca watched her work, noting the care she took to smooth each fold, to align the beadwork properly. Will you tell me more about the migration? He asked. I want to understand what you are responsible for. Vera glanced up, then back down at the pelt in her hands. The spring migration happens when the last snow melts in the high passes, she said, usually late in the 4th month. We travel in family groups, the strongest and most experienced at the front and back, the elders and children in the middle. The route takes us through 3 major passes and across 2 rivers that run fast with snowmelt. We bring everything we own, all our tools and supplies and animals, because we cannot return to the winter caves until the next season. How long does it take? 2 weeks if we are lucky and the weather holds, 3 if it does not, and there are always accidents. Someone slips on a rock. A child wanders too close to a cliff edge. An old one's heart gives out from the exertion. Her voice was steady, but Luca could hear the weight behind the words. The one who leads the migration carries the responsibility for all of it, every loss, every mistake. That is not fair, Luca said. You cannot control everything. Accidents happen. No, Vera agreed. But I am the one who chooses the route, who decides when we rest and when we push forward, who determines if a path is safe. If people die, it is because I made the wrong choice. Luca reached over and covered her hand with his. Have you lost anyone? In the 3 years you have led the migration? One, Vera said quietly. An elder named Kresh. He was 76, his legs weak and his breathing labored, but he insisted on making the journey one more time. He wanted to see the summer lands again, he said. I knew he was struggling, but he told me he was fine, and I believed him. On the 2nd day, his heart stopped, just gave out, right there in the pass. We buried him in the rocks and moved on, because that is what we had to do. But I have never forgiven myself for not seeing how bad it was. for not insisting he stay behind. Vera, Luca said gently, he made his choice. He wanted to make that journey. Would you have taken that away from him? I do not know, she admitted. I think about it all the time, whether I should have been more forceful. Whether I let him die because I did not want to argue with an elder. Or maybe you honored his wishes, Luca said. Maybe you gave him the death he wanted, in the place he loved, doing something that mattered to him. That is not a small thing. Vera was quiet for a long moment, her eyes fixed on the pelt in her hands. You are kind to say that. I am not being kind, Luca said. I am being honest. From everything I have seen, everything I know about you, you are a good leader. You care about your people. You make the hard choices and you carry the weight of them. That is what leadership is. The elders may not agree, Vera said. They may say I have proven myself unworthy, that giving the pelt to a human shows poor judgment. Then we change their minds, Luca said. Together. Vera looked at him and slowly, tentatively, she smiled. You really are reckless. So you keep saying, Luca said with a grin, but you kiss me anyway. I did, Vera said, and there was wonder in her voice. I really did. That night, they slept wrapped together under the winter pelt one last time, and the dreams that came were different yet again. This time, they dreamed of the future, or at least a future. They saw themselves walking through the summer lands together, saw themselves standing before the orc elders with their heads held high. They saw a small cabin at the edge of the world, where the mountains met the sky, and in the cabin, there was laughter and warmth, and the kind of peace Luca had spent his whole life searching for. When they woke with the dawn, neither of them spoke about the dreams. Some things were too fragile, too precious to examine too closely. Instead, they packed their things in silence and set out into the bright, cold morning. The journey to the winter caves was harder than Luca expected. Even with the storm past, the snow lay deep and treacherous across the pass, hiding rocks and crevices. Vera moved with confident ease, her steps sure and steady, but Luca struggled to keep pace. His legs, still recovering from near freezing, protested every step, and more than once he slipped and would have fallen if not for Vera's quick hand on his elbow. I am slowing you down, he panted as they paused for a brief rest on a windswept ridge. You are still healing, Vera said. She offered him her water skin and he drank gratefully. The cold went deep, Luca. Your body needs time to fully recover. We will get there when we get there. Your elders will already be angry, Luca said. We should not make them wait. They can be patient, Vera said firmly. I will not kill you getting there quickly just to spare them a few hours of waiting. That would be foolish, and I am trying very hard not to be foolish right now. Luca laughed despite himself. Only trying. Well, I did kiss a human in an ice cave, Vera said dryly. That is fairly foolish by most standards. Best decision you ever made, Luca said. We will see, Vera said, but she was smiling as she turned to continue up the path. They reached the winter caves as the sun touched the western peaks, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. Luca stopped at the ridge overlooking the caves and caught his breath, awed despite his exhaustion. The caves were not what he had expected. Instead of rough, natural formations, he saw a complex of entrances carved and shaped by generations of hands, with decorative stonework framing each opening, and what looked like wooden structures built into the rock face. Smoke rose from several of the entrances, and he could hear the faint sound of voices echoing across the snow. It is beautiful, he said quietly. It is home, Vera said, and there was such deep affection in her voice that Luca felt his chest tighten. She glanced at him, her expression turning serious. Are you ready for this? There is still time to change your mind. I could bring you to one of the outlying caves, let you rest while I face the elders alone. You do not have to do this. Yes, I do, Luca said. He reached out and took her hand, squeezing gently. I told you, I am with you, whatever happens. Vera squeezed back. Then let us go, before I lose my courage. They descended the ridge together, and as they approached the main cave entrance, orcs began to emerge to meet them. Luca felt every eye on him, felt the weight of their stares, the suspicion and hostility. He kept his head up and his hand firmly in Vera's, trying to project a confidence he did not entirely feel. An older orc woman stepped forward, her hair more silver than black, her face deeply lined. She wore robes of undyed wool and carried herself with unmistakable authority. Her eyes, the same amber as Vera's, locked onto the pack on Vera's back, the one that held the winter pelt, and her expression hardened. Vera Talmec, the elder said, her voice carrying across the snow. You have been gone 4 days. We were beginning to worry. I am sorry, Elder Brith, Vera said, her voice steady. I was caught by the storm. I took shelter in the ice caves and waited for it to pass. And you brought a human with you. Elder Brith's gaze shifted to Luca, and he forced himself not to flinch under the weight of it. A human wearing our winter furs. He was dying, Vera said. I found him in the pass, half frozen. I saved his life. A murmur ran through the gathered orcs, and Luca heard the anger in it, the disbelief. Elder Brith held up one hand for silence, and the murmuring stopped immediately. You used the sacred winter pelt to save a human, Elder Brith said flatly. You gave our clan's most precious artifact to an outsider, a stranger. Is this true? Yes, Vera said, and Luca heard the slight tremor in her voice, the only sign of her fear. It is true. Then you have much to answer for, Elder Brith said. She turned and gestured toward the main cave entrance. Come. We will hear this before the full council, and bring the human. If he is part of this, he will stand with you. Luca followed Vera into the caves, acutely aware of the crowd of orcs trailing behind them, their whispers sharp and hostile. The main cave opened into a vast natural chamber, the ceiling lost in shadows overhead, the floor smoothed by countless feet over countless years. Firelight flickered from braziers set around the chamber's edges, and at the far end, a semicircle of stone seats held a row of elders, all of them watching with hard, measuring eyes. Elder Brith took her place at the center of the semicircle and gestured for Vera and Luca to stand before them. Vera moved forward with her head high, and Luca stayed close by her side. His heart hammered against his ribs, but he kept his expression calm. Vera Talmec, Elder Brith said formally, you stand accused of desecrating the sacred winter pelt by giving its warmth to a human outsider. How do you answer? I do not deny what I did, Vera said clearly. I found this man, Luca Osworth, dying in the pass. The storm had caught him, and the cold had gone so deep I knew he would not survive without immediate warmth. I made the choice to wrap him in the winter pelt. If that is sacrilege, then I am guilty. You knew it was forbidden, another elder said, a man with scars crisscrossing his green face. You knew the pelt is meant only for the clan, only for the one chosen to lead. I knew, Vera said. But I also knew that I could not watch someone die when I had the power to save them. The pelt's purpose is to protect and preserve life. How could I honor it by letting a life end that I could have saved? Because he is human, a third elder spat, a woman with white streaks in her black hair. Because humans have raided our villages, killed our children, driven us into these mountains. We owe them nothing, less than nothing. I have not raided your villages, Luca said, and every eye in the chamber snapped to him. He swallowed hard but forced himself to continue. I have never raised a hand against orcs. I am a surveyor. I make maps. I look for ways to connect places that were separate. I know there is bad blood between our peoples. I know humans have done terrible things, but I am not responsible for those crimes. I am just a man who got caught in a storm and would have died without Vera's kindness." "Kindness," the scarred elder said mockingly. "Is that what we call betraying our most sacred traditions now?" "She did not betray anything," Luca said, and he heard his voice rising despite his best efforts. "She honored the Pelt's purpose. She saved a life. If your traditions say that is wrong, then maybe your traditions need to be examined." The chamber erupted, orcs shouting at him, at Vera, at each other. Elder Brith raised her hand again, and slowly the chaos subsided. She looked at Luca with something that might have been respect or might have been anger. It was impossible to tell. "You have courage, human," she said. "Foolish courage, perhaps, but courage nonetheless. Very well. Tell us what happened from the beginning. And Vera, you will tell us too. We will hear both sides before we make our judgment." So they told the story, Vera first, speaking calmly about finding Luca in the snow, about pulling him to the ice cave, about making the choice to use the pelt. Then Luca spoke, describing the storm, the cold, the strange and vivid dreams that had come when he slept under the pelt. He did not mention the feelings growing between them, the kiss in the cave, the way his heart had started to beat in rhythm with hers. Those things were too private, too precious to share with hostile strangers. When they finished, Elder Brith sat back in her stone seat and looked at the other elders. They leaned together, whispering, and Luca felt Vera's hand find his again, her fingers cold and trembling. "Whatever happens," he whispered, "I do not regret it." "Neither do I," Vera whispered back. Finally, Elder Brith straightened and looked down at them. "The council has discussed your actions, Vera Talmec. We are not of one mind, but the majority has decided. You violated sacred tradition, this is true. But you did so to save a life, which is the highest calling of any leader. We do not condone what you did. We do not celebrate it. But we understand why you did it, and we will not strip you of the right to lead." Vera's hand tightened on Luca's, and he heard her breath catch. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you, elders." "Do not thank us yet," the scarred elder said. "You may keep the pelt, but there are conditions. The human must leave. He cannot stay here in our winter caves among our people. We have accepted your choice to save him, but we will not accept him as one of us." "No," Luca said immediately. "That is not acceptable. It is not your place to decide what is acceptable, human," the white-haired elder snapped. "Maybe not," Luca said, "but I will not leave Vera to face your judgment alone. She saved my life. I owe her everything. If you want me gone, you will have to drag me out because I am not leaving willingly." "Luca," Vera said urgently, but he shook his head. "I mean it, Vera. I am not abandoning you, not now, not ever." Elder Brith studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. It was a small, tired smile, but genuine. "You love her," she said. It was not a question. Luca hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, I know it is fast. I know it is complicated, but yes, I love her." The chamber fell silent. Vera turned to stare at him, her amber eyes wide with shock and something that looked like hope. Elder Brith leaned forward, her hands folded on her knees. "And you, Vera Talmec, how do you feel about this human?" Vera looked at Luca, then back at the elders. When she spoke, her voice was clear and strong. "I love him too. I know you will not want to hear it. I know it goes against everything you believe about humans and orcs, but the Pelt showed me his heart, and it is good and true. I cannot turn away from that. I will not." The elders exchanged glances again, and this time Luca saw something shift in their expressions. Not acceptance, not quite, but perhaps the beginning of it. Finally, Elder Brith spoke. "This is unprecedented," she said. "A human and an orc. We have no traditions to guide us, no stories to tell us what is right. Perhaps that is as it should be. Perhaps it is time we made new stories." She paused, seeming to gather her thoughts. Luca Osworth, you say you are a surveyor, that you make maps and find paths between places. Yes, Luca said warily. Then perhaps you can be useful to us, Elder Brith said. The spring migration is dangerous because we do not know the best paths. We follow the routes our ancestors took, but those routes are old and the mountains change. Rocks fall. Rivers shift. Every year we lose people to accidents that might have been prevented with better knowledge. If you can map the passes, if you can find a safer routes, then perhaps you can earn your place among us. Luca's heart leaped. I can do that. I swear to you I can do that. And if we allow this, the scarred elder said slowly, if we allow you to stay, you must understand that it will not be easy. Many of our people will not accept you. You will face suspicion and hostility every day. You will have to prove yourself over and over again. I understand, Luca said. And I am ready. Elder Brith looked at Vera. And you, Vera Talmek, if we allow this, you will still lead the spring migration. You will still wear the winter pelt, but you will be judged more harshly than before. Any mistake, any failure will be blamed on your association with this human. Are you prepared for that? I am, Vera said without hesitation. The elders conferred again, their voices too low to hear. Luca waited, barely breathing, his hand still clasped tight in Vera's. Finally, Elder Brith nodded. Very well, she said. Luca Osworth, you may stay. You will lodge with Vera and you will work to earn your place. If when the spring comes, you have proven yourself useful and trustworthy, we will revisit the question of your permanent place among us. Until then, you are here on sufferance. Do you understand? I understand, Luca said, and he could not keep the smile from his face. Thank you all. Do not thank us, the white-haired elder said grimly. Prove us right. That is all we ask. The council dismissed them, and Vera led Luca through the network of caves to a smaller chamber near the back. It was modest but comfortable, with sleeping furs piled in one corner, a small fire pit in the center, and shelves carved into the stone walls holding various tools and supplies. Vera set her pack down carefully and turned to face him, her expression still shocked. You told them you loved me, she said. I did, Luca said. I am sorry if that was too much, too fast, but it was the truth. I do love you, Vera. I have known you for 3 days and I love you. That is probably insane, but there it is. Vera crossed the space between them in 2 quick strides and kissed him hard, her hands fisting in his shirt. Luca wrapped his arms around her and held on, letting himself get lost in the warmth of her, the solidness of her, the rightness of this moment. When they finally broke apart, Vera was smiling, her eyes bright with tears. You are insane, she said, completely and utterly insane. Does that mean you love me back? Luca asked. Yes, Vera said, laughing through her tears. Yes, you ridiculous, reckless human, I love you back. The winter passed in a blur of work and discovery. True to his word, Luca spent his days mapping the passes, using his instruments to chart distances and elevations, noting the places where avalanches were likely and where the snow tended to build up. Vera accompanied him on many of these expeditions, her knowledge of the mountains invaluable, and together they began to piece together a clearer picture of the safest routes. It was not easy. The orcs of the Talmek clan were slow to accept him, and many remained openly hostile. There were incidents, challenges, moments when Luca thought he might have pushed too far. But Vera stood by him always, her presence a constant reminder that he belonged here, that he was earning his place. And slowly, gradually, some of the orcs began to warm to him. The children were first, curious about the strange human who could make his instruments sing and tell them stories about the lowlands they had never seen. Then came a few of the younger hunters, who appreciated his skills with the compass and his willingness to learn their tracking techniques. One by one, Luca built bridges, small connections that grew into tentative friendships. Through it all, the winter Pelt stayed wrapped and protected in Vera's chamber, waiting for the spring. But sometimes, on the coldest nights, Vera would unfold it and they would sleep beneath it together, and the dreams would come again. They dreamed of the summer lands, of the cabin they might build together, of a future that seemed less impossible with every passing day. When the snows began to melt and the first signs of spring appeared, Elder Brith called Vera and Luca before the council again. This time, the elders' faces were less hostile, though still grave. "You have kept your word, Luca Osworth," Elder Brith said. "Your maps are detailed and useful. Our scouts report that the routes you have identified appear safer than the ones we have used in the past. You have earned the right to stay if you wish it." "I wish it," Luca said, "more than anything." "Then you will accompany us on the spring migration," Elder Brith said. "You will walk with Vera Talmek and help guide us through the passes. And if we arrive safely, if your maps prove as useful as they appear, then you will be welcomed as a full member of the clan. You will have a voice in our councils and a place in our community. Do you accept this?" "I accept," Luca said, his heart full to bursting. Elder Brith turned to Vera. "And you, Vera Talmek, you will lead the migration as planned. The winter Pelt is yours to wear. Lead us well and prove that the trust we have placed in you is deserved." Vera bowed her head. "I will not fail you, elders." The spring migration began on a clear, bright morning when the last of the high snow had melted from the passes. The entire clan gathered at the cave entrance, laden with packs and supplies, the children excited and the elders stoic. Vera stood at the front, the winter Pelt draped across her shoulders, its silver fur gleaming in the sunlight. Luca stood beside her, his maps in hand, and together they turned to face the long path ahead. The journey was everything Luca had imagined and more. The first pass was steep and treacherous, the path winding between towering cliffs, but Luca's maps guided them around the worst of the rockfalls. When they reached the first major river, swollen with snowmelt and running fast, Luca pointed out a crossing point he had identified during the winter, a place where the river widened and slowed just enough to be manageable. The clan crossed safely, and Luca saw respect beginning to replace suspicion in many eyes. On the third day, they reached the highest pass, the place where Elder Kresh had died the year before. Vera paused at the cairn of stones that marked his grave, her expression distant and sad. Luca touched her elbow gently. "You did well by him," he said quietly. "He died where he wanted to be. That matters." Vera nodded, not speaking, and after a moment she turned and continued up the path. Luca followed, and behind them, the clan followed too. The migration took 12 days, the fastest and smoothest anyone could remember. They lost no one, suffered no major accidents, and arrived at the summer lands with everyone healthy and whole. As the clan spread out across the meadows, setting up their summer camps, Elder Brith called Vera and Luca to her. "You have done well, both of you," she said. "Vera, you have led us safely and wisely, and Luca, your knowledge has saved lives. We are in your debt." "I am honored to have helped," Luca said. Elder Brith studied them both, then nodded slowly. "There is one more thing," she said. "The winter Pelt showed you each other's hearts. It bound you together in a way that goes beyond ordinary affection. That is sacred, even if it is strange and new. If you wish to formalize your bond, to marry in the way of our people, the council will not object." Vera's breath caught, and she turned to look at Luca with wide, hopeful eyes. Luca felt his own eyes stinging, and he reached out to take her hands. "I would like that very much," he said. "If Vera agrees." "I agree," Vera said, her voice breaking. "Yes, of course I agree." They were married 3 days later under the open sky with the whole clan gathered to witness. It was not a human ceremony, but it was beautiful in its own way. All ritual words and exchanged promises. The binding of hands with a cord made from the winter pelt's own fibers. When it was done, when they were declared bonded in the eyes of the clan and the spirits, Vera kissed Luca in front of everyone, and the orcs cheered, their voices ringing across the summer meadows. They built their cabin that summer at the edge of the clan's territory where the mountains met the sky. It was small but sturdy, with a good fireplace and windows that looked out over the valleys below. Luca continued his surveying work, now expanding his maps to cover all the territories the clan used, and Vera continued her duties as migration leader, preparing for the autumn journey back to the winter caves. But they had each other, and that was enough. More than enough. When the cold winds blew and the snow began to fall again, they would wrap themselves in the winter pelt and dream together, their souls entwined in ways that magic and love had made inseparable. The second spring came, and with it another successful migration. The council formally inducted Luca as a full clan member, and he stood before the gathered orcs with pride and humility, swearing the same oaths of loyalty and service that every member swore. He was no longer Luca Osworth the outsider. He was Luca Osworth of the Talmec clan, mapper of paths and husband to Vera, and that was an identity he wore with joy. By the third spring, Vera knew she was pregnant. She told Luca one evening as they sat together outside their cabin, watching the sun set over the mountains. He had been sketching a new section of map, his charcoal moving quickly over the parchment, and he froze at her words. "Pregnant," he repeated, his voice strangled. "You are certain?" "I am certain," Vera said, smiling at his expression. "The signs are unmistakable. We will have a child by winter." Luca set down his sketching materials and pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she laughed and pushed at him gently. "You are crushing me," she said, but there was no heat in it. "I am going to be a father," Luca said, wonder in his voice. "We are going to have a child." "We are," Vera said. She cupped his face in her hands and kissed him softly. "Are you ready for this?" "No," Luca admitted, "but I will be. We will figure it out together." Their daughter was born in the first month of winter, in the warmth of the winter caves with Elder Brith and 2 other women attending. It was a difficult birth, long and exhausting, and there were moments when Luca, waiting outside the chamber, thought he might lose his mind with fear. But when the cry finally came, thin and radiant and perfect, he nearly collapsed with relief. They named her Kira, which in the old orc tongue meant hope-bringer. She was small and green-skinned with the tiniest tusks Luca had ever seen, and when she wrapped her little fist around his finger and held on tight, he felt his heart crack open with love so fierce it hurt. Vera recovered slowly, exhausted but happy, and together they navigated the strange, wonderful chaos of new parenthood. Kira was demanding and loud and endlessly curious, and Luca found himself walking the caves at all hours trying to soothe her to sleep. But when she smiled up at him, her amber eyes so like her mother's, every sleepless night felt worth it. The clan embraced Kira with a warmth that surprised Luca. The children especially adored her, the first half-human baby most of them had ever seen. And there was always someone willing to hold her or play with her or tell her stories. Slowly but surely, Kira became the bridge between the worlds in a way even Luca had not managed, a living symbol of what was possible when fear gave way to hope. When spring came again, and it was time for the migration, Vera wrapped Kira in soft furs and carried her against her chest. The winter pelt stayed across Vera's shoulders, and Luca walked beside them both, his maps in hand. They led the clan through the passes together, and when they emerged into the summer lands, Kira's eyes went wide with wonder at the green meadows and the bright sky. "She will grow up between two worlds," Vera said that night as they settled into their cabin. Kira slept peacefully in a cradle Luca had built, her tiny fist pressed against her mouth. "Neither fully human nor fully orc. She will grow up loved," Luca said. "That is what matters. She will know both sides of her heritage and she will be stronger for it." "Yes," Vera said softly. She leaned against him, her head on his shoulder, and together they watched their daughter sleep. "We have built something good here, Luca, something that will last." "We have," Luca agreed. He thought about the freezing surveyor who had stumbled into a storm 3 years ago, certain he was going to die. He thought about the orc woman who had risked everything to save him, wrapping him in a sacred pelt and sharing his dreams. He thought about all the impossible things that had happened since, the love and the struggle and the gradual, hard-won acceptance. Outside, the wind whispered through the high peaks, carrying the scent of snow and pine. The winter pelt hung on its hook by the door, ready for the next migration, the next journey. And in the cradle, Kira stirred and sighed, dreaming whatever dreams new souls dreamed. The 4th year brought changes. 2 more couples within the clan, emboldened by Vera and Luca's example, announced their own human-orc partnerships. It caused some controversy, but less than it might have a few years earlier. The world was changing, slowly but surely, and the Talmec clan was changing with it. Luca expanded his mapping work, now traveling beyond the clan's immediate territory to chart routes for trade and communication with the lowland villages. It was delicate work, building connections between communities that had been enemies for generations, but Luca had learned patience from Vera, had learned to move slowly and speak carefully. Progress came in small increments, a successful trade agreement here, a peaceful meeting there, but it came. Vera continued to lead the migrations, now with Kira strapped to her back and Luca always at her side. The journeys became celebrations rather than ordeals, chances for the clan to come together and reaffirm their bonds. And each time, Luca's maps made the paths a little safer, the journey a little easier. By the time Kira was old enough to walk on her own, the cabin at the edge of the world had become a gathering place. Travelers stopped there, both orc and human, seeking maps or advice or just a warm meal and a safe place to rest. Vera and Luca welcomed them all, and slowly their cabin became known as a place where bridges were built, where old hatreds could be set aside in favor of something better. One evening, as they sat together watching Kira play in the meadow outside their cabin, Vera turned to Luca with a thoughtful expression. "You ever regret it?" she asked. "Giving up your old life? You could have been mapping roads for kings. Instead you are here at the edge of nowhere, married to an orc." Luca looked at her, at the woman who had saved his life and stolen his heart, and smiled. "I gave up nothing," he said. "I found everything. This is where I was always meant to be, Vera, with you, with Kira. Building something that matters." "You are certain?" Vera pressed. "Even when things are hard, even when people still look at you with suspicion?" "Even then," Luca said firmly. He took her hand and pressed it to his chest over his heart. "You feel that? That is yours. It has been yours since the moment you wrapped me in the winter pelt and showed me your dreams. I am not going anywhere." Vera's eyes filled with tears and she leaned in to kiss him gently. "I love you," she whispered against his lips. "My strange, reckless human." "And I love you," Luca whispered back. "My fierce, wonderful orc." Years passed. Kira grew into a bright, curious child who loved both her father's maps and her mother's stories. She learned to track game in the mountains with Vera, and to use a compass with Luca. and she moved between the orc and human worlds with an ease that gave her parents hope for the future. When Kira was 7, Vera gave birth to a son, a sturdy boy with green skin and Luca's brown eyes. They named him Ren, and he completed their family in ways none of them had quite realized were missing. Ren was quieter than his sister, but just as determined, and he grew up watching his parents build bridges and learning that the world was bigger and stranger and more wonderful than any old prejudice could contain. The migrations continued, year after year, each one safer than the last thanks to Luca's ever-improving maps and Vera's steady leadership. The clan prospered, and slowly the human settlements in the lowlands began to see the orcs not as enemies but as neighbors, as people worth knowing. It was not perfect. There were still incidents, still moments of tension and fear. Old hatreds died hard, and there were always those who clung to the familiar comfort of prejudice. But the trend was clear. The world was changing, and Vera and Luca were at the heart of that change. On their 10th anniversary, Elder Brith called them before the council once more. She was very old now, her hair completely silver, her movements slow and careful. But her eyes were still sharp, still filled with the wisdom that had guided the clan for so many years. "You have done well," she said simply. "Both of you. You have proven that the impossible is merely the difficult waiting to happen. The clan is stronger for your presence. The world is better for your example." "Thank you, Elder," Vera said, bowing her head respectfully. Elder Brith smiled, and there was warmth in it now, genuine affection. "The winter Pelt chose well when it showed you each other's hearts," she said. "I did not believe it at the time. I thought you had made a foolish mistake, Vera, using it to save a human, but I was wrong. The Pelt knew what it was doing. It was building a bridge, and you two have been walking across it ever since, bringing others with you. We could not have done it without the clan's support," Luca said, "without your willingness to give us a chance." "Perhaps," Elder Brith said. "But you had to prove yourselves worthy of that chance, and you did." She paused, seeming to gather her thoughts. "I am old. I will not see many more springs, but I will die knowing that the clan is in good hands, that the future will be brighter than the past. That is enough." She passed away that winter, peacefully in her sleep, and the clan mourned her deeply. But her legacy lived on in the choices she had made, the bridges she had allowed to be built, the future she had helped create. Vera led the spring migration that year with the winter Pelt across her shoulders and tears in her eyes, and the entire clan followed her with absolute trust. When they reached the summer lands and held the ceremony to honor Elder Brith's memory, Luca stood beside Vera and held her hand, offering silent support. "She gave us a chance," Vera said quietly as the ceremony ended and the clan dispersed. "When no one else would have." "She did," Luca agreed. "And we honored that chance. We built something beautiful." "We did," Vera said. She looked around at the summer lands, at the clan settling into their camps, at Kira and Ren playing with the other children. "We really did." The years continued to unfold, each one bringing new challenges and new joys. Kira grew into a young woman with her mother's strength and her father's curiosity, and she began training to potentially lead migrations herself one day. Ren discovered a talent for diplomacy, for bringing people together and finding common ground, and he traveled with Luca to the lowlands to help negotiate trade agreements. Vera and Luca grew older together, their hair graying and their movements slowing, but their love never diminished. They still slept beneath the winter Pelt on cold nights, still dreamed together of the future they were building. The dreams had changed over the years, less urgent and more peaceful, but they remained a constant reminder of the magic that had brought them together. When Kira was 20, the council approached her about taking on the role of migration leader, about inheriting the winter Pelt. It was a weighty decision, and she spent weeks considering it, talking to her parents and the elders and anyone else who would listen. In the end, she accepted, and Vera passed the pelt to her daughter with tears of pride in her eyes. "It chose you," Vera said as she draped the silver fur across Kira's shoulders. "Just as it chose me. Lead well. Lead with courage and compassion. And remember that the pelt's greatest power is not in keeping you warm, but in showing you the truth of people's hearts." "I will remember," Kira promised, and Luca could see in her eyes that she meant it. The next spring, Kira led her first migration, and Vera and Luca walked beside her as advisors and support. It was strange to let go of the responsibility after so many years, but also liberating. They could enjoy the journey now without the weight of leadership, could take time to appreciate the mountains and the sky and the clan moving together in harmony. When they reached the summer lands, Luca and Vera returned to their cabin and settled into a new rhythm. They were elders now, respected and valued, and people came to them for advice and stories. They welcomed these visitors, shared their knowledge freely, and watched with satisfaction as the world they had fought so hard to build continued to grow and evolve. One evening, as the sun set over the mountains and painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Vera and Luca sat together on the porch of their cabin. Their hands were clasped, their bodies leaning comfortably against each other, and between them lay the winter pelt, no longer needed for migrations but still cherished. "You remember that first night?" Luca asked quietly. "In the ice cave, when you wrapped me in the pelt and I thought I was dreaming." "I remember," Vera said, smiling. "You were half frozen and completely bewildered. And you were so serious," Luca said. "So determined to save me even though it cost you everything." "It did not cost me everything," Vera corrected gently. "It gave me everything, you, our children, this life. I would make the same choice 1,000 times over." "So would I," Luca said. He lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it softly. "Every hardship, every challenge. All of it was worth it to be here with you." They sat in comfortable silence, watching as the stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere in the distance, they could hear Kira's voice calling to Ren, could hear the laughter of grandchildren they had never expected to have. The world had changed so much since that first desperate meeting in the storm, and most of that change had been for the better. "The pelt knew," Vera said suddenly. "When it showed us each other's dreams, it knew we were meant to be together, that we would build something important." "Magic or fate or just dumb luck," Luca said with a grin. "I do not really care which it was. I am just grateful." "Me too," Vera said softly. She leaned her head on his shoulder and Luca wrapped his arm around her, holding her close. The winter pelt, draped across their laps, seemed to hum with contentment, its magic quiet but present. They had built a life together from impossible beginnings, had created a family and a community, and a future that no one could have predicted. The orc woman had wrapped the freezing human in her sacred winter pelt, and in doing so, she had shared his dreams and he had shared hers. And from that sharing had come something beautiful and lasting. The stars wheeled overhead, marking the passage of time and seasons, and Vera and Luca sat together in the gathering dark. Two souls bound by magic and choice and love, watching the world they had helped create continue to spin on into the future.